Business is FN hard.
Business is FN hard.
Business is FN hard. Business is FN hard.
Business is FN hard.
Business is FN hard. On today's episode, meet Cat Hutchings, founder of Wonderlight Jewelry.
Like many entrepreneurs, it found me before I found it and knew that it was actually in my blood.
Tracy Byrd, founder of Be Royal.
That's the key to the success, is being persistently consistent and consistently persistent.
And Tiffany Benitez, founder of Women Plus and Technology of Northwest Arkansas.
It's not yes to everything. I mentioned that earlier, but it is saying yes to what you're passionate about. It's saying yes to what is going to matter.
Get ready to get real, because business is FN hard. Welcome back, everybody, to Business is Effin' Hard. I'm your host, Kyndsie Huston, and I am super excited to have you guys with us for another episode where we're tackling the highs, the lows, and the lessons of entrepreneurship. Today, I am thrilled to introduce three inspiring guests who have not only built amazing businesses, but are also making waves in their respective industries. So we'll explore their journeys, look at their missions, and how they're navigating the challenges of being bold leaders in business. So let's dive in and meet our guests. Cat, let's start with you. You are the founder and CEO of Wonderlight Jewelry, a mindfulness-driven brand that pairs gemstones with positive affirmations. So tell us a little bit about that and what inspired you to create this unique blend of mindfulness and jewelry.
Yeah, so I was actually in the handmade jewelry space for about 14 years now. Back in college, I took an entrepreneurship class on a whim. It was a business plan you had to do for one of the assignments. I was like, maybe this could be something I actually do some days. I stumbled upon making jewelry. At the time, I was really into big, fun earrings and fashion. I started making them, selling them around campus. And I had a sister-in-law that found out, and she was like, you should sell them on Etsy. 14 years ago, I was like, what's Etsy? So I did, though. I looked it up, took the photos, listed them, and they actually started selling. And I was like, oh, this is so fun and exciting. What a thrill. I was actually a broadcasting major, and business was never even on my radar. Like many entrepreneurs, it found me before I found it and knew that it was actually in my blood. But I just started, and again, it's like I became obsessed. I just loved that thrill of watching it grow and how to grow it and the challenges and everything. And so years in, it was several years. I was just completely solopreneur. And then I was like, oh, I need to hire someone, I think. And oh, wait, am I a business? So just, again, kept going from there. And so now the intentional piece came just a couple years ago. It was just like a hodgepodge of jewelry and fun. But then I remember COVID happened, and like a lot of people, when everything slowed down, I discovered a little more about just mindfulness and purpose and questioning life and all of this stuff. And I found all these practices and was like, what am I doing? I sell jewelry, and yes, people love it, but why? There's something else there. What else could I do with this? And so I came up with this idea to attach affirmations to each piece of jewelry. So when you go on our website, wonderlightjewelry.com, you'll see everything is gemstone based. So we have 26 different gemstones, and each of those gemstones has a specific meaning. You can wear your confidence earrings or your love earrings or your serenity or power or whatever you're trying to do. I was like, what is something that we can do to be more mindful that's not going to take any more time? Because sometimes I love the meditation, the journaling, the breath work, the yoga. There's so many things we can do, but sometimes finding the time to incorporate those almost gives me more anxiety and makes me less present and aligned. So I was like, hey, what if every day I attach a meaning to this jewelry that I'm already putting on, and I take that 5 seconds to read the affirmation card, to breathe into it. And now it just has so much more, I feel like, meaning and purpose. Like we help women be more mindful, aligned, and present throughout their day just by the jewelry that they wear. And I like to think it's still gorgeous. It's still a fun, gorgeous accessory. But now it just, again, has more meaning, and it helps me be more intentional with my day and what I'm focusing on and trying to be aware of. So yeah, that's jewelry's journey and my journey over the past 14 years.
I love that. Thank you so much, Kat. And you took the words right out of my mouth with the intention. I think it's a really unique idea to have this jewelry brand and wear it with intention of these affirmations. And so it's really inspiring. And I'm excited to learn more about how you're bringing mindfulness just into everybody's daily lives.
Happy to be here.
And next up, we have Miss Tracy, the founder and owner of Best Ride of Your Life, or Be Royal LLC. Tracy, tell us a little bit about your cycling pad and what inspired you to design it and how it's changing the game for cyclists.
Yeah, so I have been a cyclist for many years and got into endurance sports, trained and raced 7 Ironmans and 7 half Ironmans and a host of other stuff. So my point in bringing that up is to train to ride 112 miles after swimming, and then you still got to go run. You're on the bike a lot, right? So every little thing that can be wrong with a bike shorter pad, I experienced and had conversations with other people that I was riding with about their same experience on this hurts and that hurts and this isn't comfortable and it pinches me right here and all of those sorts of things and some horrible stories. But anyway, so all of that was being added to the brain. And then Kat said COVID hit. And so one day I literally just got out a piece of paper and some pencils and scissors and started drawing what I thought the pad shape should look like and how it should go into the shorts. I came across a program that the University of Arkansas Office of Entrepreneurship has and sent an email to the fellow who runs the program. And he said, well, you need to come in and talk to me. Went in and just talked to him, pulled my little drawing out, my little half-made pattern. And he said, Tracy, I don't know why someone hasn't thought of this before. He was a cyclist himself. And so that course lit me up. I'm like, well, if he likes it, maybe there is something to this. He said, you need to apply to our program. And so I applied to the University of Arkansas Office of Green. It's a 12-week, very intense program where you meet each week for 3 hours with the others who are in the program. And there's maybe 10 total. And so we would spend one night a week, 3 hours doing that. We would learn about patents and marketing and social media and writing a plan and all the pieces it takes to come together to get your product out there. I also had 3 mentors that I met with once a week. And then I also had an intern from the U of A that worked specifically for me, and I gave her projects to do. So like I say, and then you also had homework, of course. So clearly lots of time, but the resources that I gained was incredible. I met people I would never have come across. And then at the end of the program, you make your big presentation. The cool thing about this program, other than all the resources you're getting, you get $15,000. So that was a really nice little startup chunk, right? One thing led to the other. I was doing all this research, came across a company in Italy that tends to be the pad manufacturer in the world. If you're a cyclist at all and you've got some shorts with a pad, turn them inside out and look at the pad, you'll see a little tiny logo on there, and it's most likely Elastic Interface out of Italy. So I just emailed them, and one thing led to the other, and the next thing I know, I'm sending them my pattern, and we're going back and forth on the design and what I wanted and what fabrics and what pads and what densities and all those things. About probably 4 months ago, I finally got a finished molded pad from Elastic Interface. And I'm going to leave out some things, but I had different ways I might go with the whole thing. But what I wound up doing then was work with a local company called Interform, and they are helping me design a bike short to put the pad in. So that's where we are right now. I actually have the first prototype of the short with the actual pad in it. I also applied to another program called Builders and Backers, and it wasn't near as thorough and intense, but still more resources and another $5,000. So I was very fortunate to get some nice startup money. So here I am on a podcast talking to you guys about what all I've been up to with the pad. It's called Be Royal, Best Ride of Your Life. It's patent pending.
That is incredible.
Thank you.
It is always super exciting to be able to hear about innovations that truly do solve real problems, especially when they are created with such passion and care and from a cyclist herself. I'm super proud of you and super excited to hear more about that.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Miss Tiffany. Tiffany is a seasoned technology leader with 23 years of experience across industries and the founder of Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas. Tiffany, tell us a little bit about that. What sparked the idea for this initiative and how has it evolved?
Yeah, I would say similar to the other two ladies here, when you find what you love and what you're passionate about, there's a lot of work behind it, but it really just starts to flourish and grow. So been in corporate my entire career. This nonprofit, which listen, nonprofit is hard too. I know for-profit is, but nonprofit's a beast. Okay. I came back to Northwest Arkansas for a role from a metropolitan city. And when I came back, I just wanted to go and join a women in tech group. Northwest Arkansas is small, but it is a massive tech hub. And there were no groups for women. And it was very surprising for me. My mom taught me from when I was a little girl, if there's not a table, you just make one. I've started and run several nonprofits, so I knew how to do the legal piece, did all of that, had no team, no plan. I didn't have a business plan because all I wanted to do, I'm a tired mom. I just wanted to go hang out at someone else's group and really learn more. But I wanted this organization to be more than just what a lot of women-led groups, especially like in the nonprofit area, they really focus on events, and that's great. But it means that we stop at networking and connection. And while there's a lot of value there, I'm actually trying to drive something different. Nationally, women in technology represent 28%, and I'm not good with that. So if there's $100 on the table, I want more than 28. So instead of complaining about the problem, I decided to create an organization that would really drive change and impact. We have 3 different pillars. Really, events and networking is huge. So that's one of the pillars. I believe the second 2 pillars is where we will drive the most change and impact and start bringing more women into technology. The second is around training and certification. So we are sponsored by Google nationally. We give out free technology certifications to women in the community, no strings attached. And then our third is around education. We go back into our local schools, and they really across the US are only taught from a tech perspective, computer science. So we're telling our kids that unless you want to be an engineer, tech isn't for you. That is not a reality. Anything you want to do, you can do that in tech. But the schools can only do with the resources they have. So we go into the schools, we take Tech for All clubs, speakers, we take in reverse career fairs so we can start showing them holistically what technology is and start bringing our girls in. And then out of that birthed our Girls in Tech organization. They function just like the Women in Tech, have the same 3 pillars. We start certifying the girls as early as age 13 with our sponsorship with IBM. They get an emerging tech certification. So it's been a really cool journey. We just started it again out of a need of I just wanted to go. It's blown up. We had people across the US reach out and say, this is really cool. I wish we had this where I lived. So I brought on an expansion lead, created a framework, and now we have chapters in Charlotte, North Carolina, New Jersey, New York, Central Arkansas, Southeast Louisiana, and then getting ready to launch into a few other states in Jackson, Mississippi as well.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations, Tiffany. It's really amazing to see the impact that you're making, and not just in empowering women, but also in driving change in the tech world. It's really inspiring. And that does bring me to the main segment of today's episode. Looking at all of your businesses, you do come from 3 different industries, but building something meaningful comes with its own set of obstacles. And so you guys have faced some unique challenges in each of your journeys. I'd like to dive into those experiences and the lessons that you've learned along the way. So Kat, we'll go ahead and start with you. And what has been one of the biggest hurdles that you've faced as an entrepreneur in the mindfulness space, and how have you worked through it?
I love this. Is like when we talked about what the show was going to be about. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good, because I could just go on for days and days about all the hard things, because there's so many good things too. But before I do get into that, I just wanted to say really quick, Tracy, I love that you talked about the GORE program. That is a program that I am actually really familiar with. I'm good friends with the lady that's the director now, and I know they've been doing it for several years. I even have a friend that I've tried to recruit. He's from San Diego, one of my entrepreneur buddies. I think he's going to come out here and maybe set up like a satellite office for the van life stuff he's doing. I think I went to one of your galas recently. A friend of mine runs the Ignite program, and she took me to, I think, the last gala that you guys had. When was that? A couple months ago, maybe? But anyway, so I was really impressed with the gala. Know your organization. Love that you were a part of that. That's one of my favorite things, like doing this podcast, is because that local piece is so fun to me when we get to talk about just some of the programs and the connections and all of those things. That was really fun to hear from both of you about that. But challenges. So challenges for me, I think in the mindful space, what I've been doing with the jewelry and everything, a huge one. And I don't know, again, every entrepreneur's journey is different, but for me, it was almost like a complete rebrand. Again, I feel like in some ways, if you're in this game long enough, at some point you have to do some really big, hard pivots. And for me, we actually did a complete rebrand. Again, the idea was formed back in 2020, but it literally, even though I'd already by that point been in the game for, gosh, I don't even know, about 10 years, I think, it was still such a huge undertaking to take what started out. And again, one of the things I tell people, when you're starting a business, it can go two ways. If you take my route, where you didn't even know it was going to be a business, you had no idea what you were doing, that's great and set me up for a lot of success that way, because I had no expectations. I got one sale a week and I was like, oh my gosh, I got a sale, like one sale this week. Whereas with other people, if you go in, hey, I'm building this business, we're going to get funding, these are our goals, these are our things, and you actually start going and moving and you're not seeing like that traction, it's already so hard being in entrepreneurship. But for me, it was like that blissful ignorance. Again, it was the first company I ever started. I didn't even know it was going to be a company. And I just happened to be, again, maybe it's lucky, maybe it's a piece of this that is more important than people realize, but it's the fact that I had no expectations. Everything was a win, every triumph. So now, like with this rebrand, it's like I was 10 years in. So the flip side of that coin is, if you approach it that way, there were so many things that I had to learn and almost go back and fix. And I think that was the part of this rebrand. We used to be called Spotlight Jewelry, sold just on Etsy. And so when we switched over, so that was one thing, like switching all the branding, the packaging, the logos, the names on all the different stuff. So we're now Wonderlight Jewelry. So that was a huge one. But then again, even it was like taking 10 years of what I had learned from that first go at it, even though it's like still the same thing, but we've had to reverse and fix and do a lot of stuff. And now I'm plagued with the other side of the coin, is I do have expectations. I know what a business does and it's capable of. So like on Etsy, that was our bread and butter forever. And we crushed it. I was in like the top 1% of all sellers. I got super good at it. Etsy's flown me out to their headquarters before to speak on some of their panels and stuff, because I've been doing it for so long. I really honed in and mastered that one piece. But now I'm like, oh, it's going to be so, like, I'm going to go open my Shopify store and I totally know about e-commerce and I know about SEO and photos and customer service and all the things. Like, this is going to be so easy. And so I started my own website and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am like definitely further ahead than someone that started at 0. But there's so many things that I've had to go back and learn. Like, we're doing paid ads and doing a lot more with email. There were so many things that I couldn't quite do the way I really wanted to scale on Etsy, obviously. But now I had the flip side of that coin, where I had all these expectations and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot how hard this grind is. Like, why is it taking so long? Because Etsy, at some point in entrepreneurship, if you set up those systems and you get good at it and you're focused, it's like, eventually it's like you can work less and make more. And that's the point I'd got to, but I'd also plateaued a little bit. And so that new growth, it's reversed itself. And now I'm working a ton more, making way less, again, specifically on the new website, and it's this new brand and trying to grow that piece of the business. But it's also been so fun. Oh my gosh, I remember this. It's been this really interesting dynamic for me. I know a lot more than I did back then, but there's still so much learning and growth that's come with this pivot and just being a lot more intentional with what is our mission? What is our vision? Like, why are we doing this? How does this, like all of those questions, what is the problem that we are solving? Who is it for? How does it help their life? As opposed to it just was like, oh, I'm just like selling jewelry and people like it and we get good reviews and it's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so powerful, Kat. And it sounds now, knowing everything that you do from the prior 10 years of business, you're able to turn those challenges into opportunities.
Yeah.
But even with the constant pivoting and adapting, which you have to do in the world of entrepreneurship, it's hard to figure out what you don't know. And until you realize later down the line, like, oh man, I wish I would have known it about 4 months ago.
Yes. And now it's like I've fallen into the classic entrepreneur trap of it's because I do have like this successful piece of the business. It's like sometimes when these problems and stuff are coming up, I just try to throw money at it. I'm like, oh, I'll just pay someone to do that. I'll just pay someone to do my paid ads and not learn it. And I'll just pay someone to get us on Amazon. And it's never worked for me anytime. And all of my business, like the mentors, all the programs and stuff that I've done, that's what has always, at least for me, that's been my reality, what I've been taught and is now proving true. They're like, as the CEO and founder, you have to know as much of the pieces as you can. It doesn't mean I have to be an expert and run the paid ads for the rest of the days that we're doing, but it's if I don't know what's working and no one is going to care about my business and know my business the way I do. So I keep hoping that it's not going to be true. And I'm like, oh, I'll just pay someone to do this. I don't know anything about this piece. You do, you just do it. And it's just so far, my experience has been what everyone told me. That's just not the case. And that's one of the, I think, most challenging things about being an entrepreneur, for at least, again, in my world and my reality, is having to learn that, oh, I actually have to like put in the sweat equity before I can put in just like the monetary equity into fixing these things or learning these things and growing the business.
And you're absolutely right, though. You don't necessarily have to be the expert in every single area of your business, but understanding the why behind the things, like, okay, this is why we are running these paid ads. This is the purpose. This is the goal of that. It certainly does help make the other areas run smoothly and help you decide who and where to delegate that task with in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Even though I love it, it's like such a love-hate relationship for me is that learning piece of a business. I'm like so resistant. It's embarrassing now because AI is such a huge, helpful part of my business in so many ways now. And I'm not even claiming to like even be close to an expert, but I use it a ton and it knows probably more about my business than it freakily should. But because of that, I remember when it was first coming out, I don't even know, like a year or 2 years ago, everyone, like all my entrepreneur buddies were like, Kat, it's not that hard. And I was like, no, Katie, one of the girls on my team, I'm like, Katie likes that. She's just gonna do all the AI things. Anything AI, just send it to Katie. And finally I was like, oh, fine. And I got in there and I started using it. I was like, oh, this is actually really easy and super helpful. And I'm so glad I just buckled down and did this. But I think that's a good example of sometimes it's so hard for me to be like, okay, fine, I'll learn the thing. And then I'm like, oh, this is not so bad. I can do this.
Absolutely. Tracy, I'd love to hear your perspective next. Thinking about your product, creating an innovative product like yours certainly isn't easy.
Mm-hmm.
What is one of the major challenges that you've faced, and how are you working to overcome it?
One of the major challenges I think I face and still face is I'm not a business person. I'm a biology and chemistry girl. All the ins and outs of marketing and branding and all of that. I have been very fortunate. I have worked with those people and they've been very helpful for me. But I guess the suggestion I have is you just keep reaching out to contacts because you tell everybody you know what you're up to and they know somebody, or you didn't realize they knew already. And so the help is there. It's just about putting it out there. I've always given advice. If you're looking for a job, you tell everybody you know you're looking for a job because you never know who they know. And it's the same thing with this. It was, I didn't know who, I didn't know where, I didn't know how, I didn't know when. I think obviously I'm at the point now where money is a big deal. So now where does the money come from? I was fortunate to have $20,000 to kind of get this thing going. And I'll just tell you, I have a few $1,000s left. So that's not going to go very far. I think for now, it's the obstacles have been simply not knowing how. And back to the point of these programs I went through, clearly they gave me a good foundation, but mostly they gave me the resources I can go to ask the right questions. I'm at a point with, if I get the patent, am I just going to sell the patent? Or am I going to go ahead and produce the pad and the short? Am I going to sell that to somebody and let them have it? Am I going to do it myself? So I'm sitting on the cusp of what's next. Like I said, I just now got the first pair of prototype shorts with the pad in it. So I've got a lot of testing to do there and a lot of tweaking on that short to do. So yeah, those are some of the things. It's just knowing who, it's knowing where, it's knowing how, when. And then I think for me right now, it's finding the financial backing to make the next steps. It's overwhelming and it's fun, but it's overwhelming. It's all of those things together for sure. But I think for me is I had all that experience and time on a bicycle. So I knew what was wrong. And I had the idea of how to fix it. So it was literally just take the first step. People have great ideas all the time. You hear them tell you, oh, I had this great idea. And you're just like, wow, hadn't somebody thought of that before? But if you want to pursue, you have to get out of your box. And that's not easy for a lot of people. I do like my box, but I also like to get in somebody else's box and hear about it, right? And look around. So I just continue to rely on resources that I've been fortunate enough to have to continue to give me good guidance.
It's such an important insight, though, Tracy. Product development in general is rough. Mm-hmm. And so being able to just be transparent about, I might not know everything that there is to know on the business side of things, but I do know that I have a product that I'm passionate about, that other people are passionate about, that it's making a difference. Mm-hmm. You've got to start somewhere. And I vote to always start with the passion. You've got the passion. Now it's a matter of finding those right connections to further that into something more fruitful.
Right.
And it almost ties in with what Tiffany, I believe, is going to talk a little bit about. And maybe Tiffany can give some insight for you, Tracy. And Tiffany, you mentioned earlier with making that big career move into founding Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas, that must have been a pivotal moment for you. Can you share a little bit about what inspired you to make that leap and what that transition was like to maybe not know everything you needed to, but just jumping into it?
Yeah, I would say key was exactly what you just said, Tracy. It's your yes. And I will tell you, it's actually ironic because women are typically not great at saying no. So we say a lot of yeses, but we don't say yes to the things that are actually like life-changing for us because there's a lot of risk around that. By nature, I'm speaking generally, are risk averse. Like we have to calculate every single impact that's going to happen, who all is going to be impacted by my decision, family, like all of those things. And so in that, we typically don't say yes. We stay in our comfort zones. And then we always end up wondering, what if I'd have done that? And I just refuse to continue wondering, like, what if? And that means that you're going to have to take some uncomfortable risks. And you know what? They don't all work out, right? Like you guys are actual like entrepreneurs. I'm on the nonprofit side, still do have my corporate job. But if you don't say yes, you will never know. And in that, if you're okay with mediocrity and you don't want to fulfill your dreams, then stay comfortable. If you want to actually make change and impact, if you want to bring, we're all in different spaces and industries, but if you really want to bring whatever it is you're after to people, because it's all a sell. Listen, nonprofit is a sell. At work, in corporate, it's a sell. Like you build something great in technology. If your business does not understand what it means to them and how it benefits them, they're not going to use it. And you just wasted money and time and resources. And so I think the challenge for me, though, has been going from a corporate mindset was great. It helped me, like I build teams really well and I build programs after 23 years in corporate. But the nonprofit sector, and I would say small business in general is very different than running like big corporate. So it helped prepare me with some things to do, but the way in which you work and operate is very different. So you work off of volunteers. Okay, I'm a nonprofit. Like I don't have paid associates here. So you work off of volunteers. So how do you create a quality organization that does really high performing and functioning things with volunteers? Like you can fire someone, but Why would you want to? Like, they're pouring in their time. And so it's been a challenge for me just adjusting to what that looks like. Also, the nonprofit sector is very different with the politics. And I'm not from Arkansas, period. So just getting to know some of like the government resources that help fund and grant some of the programs that we run. Financial backing will always be a challenge, probably for all of us, no matter what sector that you're in. So I agree with some of those things, but I think it's really, really important to take the leap. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. You just try something different. I feel like we don't have those conversations early enough in life. No one told me at 20 years old, like, you don't have to have it all figured out. Go try something. And if you don't like it, you'll try something else. You'll end up in your mid 40s. I checked all the boxes. I went to school, got the degrees, and I was completely unfulfilled. The Women in Tech really stemmed from, what do I want? What is my passion? And it's to help enable women and to bring girls into a sector, because it's less about tech and it's more about their growth. It's more about knowing like how and where can they invest in themselves to actually be able to do whatever it is that they want to do later in life. And so it's just been a challenge again, that mindset thing, the yes is hard, but I tell my kids all the time, choose your hard. Like, going is hard, staying is hard. Staying in the same cycle of insanity is really hard, that never changes. But the yes of going will get easier because you will learn it. You will grow into it. So you just have to choose your hard.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you, Tiffany. Your entire story reminds me, and hopefully all of us, that change is necessary. And it's oftentimes empowering as a part of growth, especially for women breaking barriers in business. Speaking of women in business, hearing from different perspectives is one of the best ways for us to grow as entrepreneurs. And so what I'd like to do next is tap into each of your guys' expertise. So we'll start with Cat. Cat, talking about your work being tied to mindfulness and positive energy, what advice would you give to our listeners, our audience, about staying grounded and focused while managing the demands of running a business?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. I like to pride myself, my business is, I like to call it, it's like that special space for me where the woo meets the work. So there's, again, this whole movement around just mindfulness, manifestation, law of attraction, like all of this kind of stuff. And especially even in the natural crystal gemstone kind of space, it's the vibrations, the healing properties, all of this stuff. And where I like to fall, I like to think of myself as both in the middle. And for a long time, though, I didn't even know that the woo existed. I was just the work. I was like, you come in, you do the work, you focus, goals. No one had ever talked to me about anything woo before. And again, I just right around 2020, again, it's not a coincidence, but all around this same time, I found some books and I met some people and different things. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this world of woo, so to speak? But that's something that I wish. And again, now obviously with the business that I'm doing, is I had no idea. I was 10 plus years into my entrepreneurship journey where I even heard people talking about mindset. I don't know how that happened. Again, maybe I just wasn't ready to receive it, or it wasn't the right time, what have you. But my business grow the way I wanted it to, or felt aligned with, there had to be so much. And I'm still this is a continuous process. I tell people, I'm like, even though it's my business and what we do, I still feel like a mindfulness Padawan. I'm like, I am still learning. I'm still trying some of these different practices and mindset shifts and therapy, like so many things that I'm like, oh, it's so interesting. How am I feeling right now? Am I living in the moment? Am I just stressing about the future? Like, all of this stuff. So I feel like it's so directly correlated to entrepreneurship, and especially what you will hear all the time, whether you're woo or work or anywhere, I feel like, is this: you have to have determination in entrepreneurship, because the whole purpose of this podcast, it is so hard and there are so many challenges and things you don't know. And I feel like that determination comes a lot from some of those mindfulness. Like, I had no idea, the amount of there's so many things, like the negative self-talk. And again, it's not just like the woo. There's so much science and stuff behind the reality of our subconscious and what that can sometimes do. They say, okay, you think about a certain type of car and you're automatically going to see that car more. It's not that it's magically all of a sudden they're more, but because you've trained your mind is looking for those things, it's like you notice them. And so that's how it is with entrepreneurship. Your mindset, if you have a positive mindset, if you think you're going to succeed, if you believe that, if you see it, like our brains, like we don't even know or completely understand how they work, but there is definitely, at least I believe, so much correlation between what we actually bring into our reality and how we approach our businesses. And again, success, where we're trying to take them is so much more in some of my internal systems and my mindset than I ever realized. I thought it was all the checklist. Oh, give me the checklist. Tell me what to do. Set up the app, do the things, build the site, blah, blah, blah. Get the marketing, get the money, like all the things. But there's so many other pieces of that if you're not aware of like how, like the class says, know thyself and how you're showing up. That's going to affect the results that you achieve in business more than I think a lot of people, or at least for me, for years. And again, I'm still even learning more than we realize.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such thoughtful advice, Kat. And I couldn't agree with you more. Really, I also believe when it comes to mindset, that is truly the key to balancing it all. It all boils down to your mindset.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Kat. And Miss Tracy, turning to you next, launching a product that kind of challenges the status quo of things, takes some boldness and certainly some resilience as well. And what advice would you give to our audience about staying persistent in the face of setbacks?
That's funny you use that word. Years ago, I sold pharmaceuticals for quite some time and was pretty darn good at it. And new reps would come to me and say, what makes you successful? And I came up with this. I said, you have to be persistently consistent and consistently persistent, period. And that's true in business. It's true in life. It's true relationships, whatever. That's the key to the success, is being persistently consistent and consistently persistent. So I think for me, I probably have ridden a bicycle around the world if it was possible. That's how many hours I've spent on a bike and tried all the different types of pad shapes and the lubes and the goos and all the ointments and all of that stuff. And so much of what motivated me was based off my own experience and knowing that it had to be better. And then you go ask somebody else and you take notes and you ask again.
Truly it was. And I think what you had last said, or what I had gotten as the last takeaway, was continuing to ask questions, continuing to stay consistent and persistent as well.
Yes. Especially in the face of diversity.
Thank you, Miss Tracy.
You're welcome.
And turning to Tiffany. Tiffany, you have built this national nonprofit that empowers women in tech while also navigating a long career in leadership. My question to you is, what advice could you give to our audience around building that strong community around their businesses?
I would say it does still come with taking the risk and saying yes, right? And it's not yes to everything. I mentioned that earlier, but it is saying yes to what you're passionate about. It's saying yes to what is going to matter. I love, as Kat talked about, the woo meets the work. Like, why am I in my mid-40s and just learning that? We also, I think, have that responsibility to take that back to the next generation. So we can talk to our 15, 20-year-old kids around us and they're not waiting until their mid-40s. So I think understanding what you are passionate about, taking the risk to do it, no matter what it looks like, and it will equal change and impact to those around you. So the organization I run has not blown up because I'm cool. Like, it blew up because there was a need, right? And it's the same thing for for-profit business. Like, if there is a need, then you will make money. And if there is a need, it will grow. And I think the same applies for nonprofit. And so rallying around what the need in the community is, but don't make it up, right? Like, if you're not passionate about that, that will also come off as like super inauthentic and no one's going to buy it anyway. So go after what you're passionate about. Don't let the risk stop you. Fear is paralyzing. Like, I remember like going to sleep with a panic attack. Like, is this the right thing? Like, where's my security? And so making big moves, whether it's a different job or starting a new company or transitioning to something else, like, say yes, get out of your comfort zone, and really just take the risk. That's the biggest advice I could give anyone. So they're not having to figure all this out, later on in life, as some of us are.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you so much, Tiffany. And I can certainly see the passion in your work as well as Kat's and Tracy. The three of you guys have been just incredible guests for today's episode. I really appreciate each of you ladies hopping on with me today. Before we wrap up, I'll turn to Kat next. Kat, could you tell our listeners, our audience, a little bit about what's next for you in your business, some exciting news that you want to share?
So we've got the Shopify site. This is all so new, so exciting, but you can visit us at wonderlightjewelry.com. We have some new, really cool custom affirmation necklaces. So essentially, you get to pick 4 of your favorite affirmations, and we'll make it into a beautiful necklace. There's the 4 different beads, and you're going to get those 4 specific affirmation cards. So they're just gorgeous gifts, really special. Again, like whatever you're going through for your life in that moment, you've got 26 different mindsets that you can choose from and put on your necklace and wear every day. So I feel like that's one of our newest products I'm really excited about and feel like it could just do a lot of good in the world.
Absolutely. I'm certainly going to go check that website out after this. Thank
Awesome.
you so much, Kat.
Thank you so much
really
for having me. It was so
that.
much fun, ladies.
And Miss Tracy, could you tell us a little bit about what's next for Be Royal and how people can support your mission?
Absolutely. Here's where I'm at. I have the pad from Elastic Interface in Italy, so that was great. I have a fantastic company sewing my short. I have the first prototype of that short. My next step is going to be testing that prototype myself, then getting multiples of those made, getting other people to try it, use it. If you want to jump in and say, hey, I would like to be one of your testers, that would be fantastic. Probably the easiest way right now for you to get in touch with me is, here's my cell phone, call me, text me, 479-200-7718. That really would be the easiest way to connect me. I do have an Instagram account and a Facebook account for Be Royal. It's B-ROYL. Best ride of your life. You're obviously very welcome to go on there, but I would love to hear from you. I'd love to have you part of the testing procedure and help me grow the business. Thanks for having us. It was fun.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, to our audience, if you guys have some insight for Tracy, some advice from your own end, or if you simply want to test out her product, yes, definitely go and connect with her, please. And thank you. And then last but not least, Miss Tiffany, what is coming up for Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas, and where can people get involved?
So I would say locally here in Northwest Arkansas, it is womenintechnwa.org. That's our website. We are also on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. So Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas. If you're at other places or venturing to other places across the U.S., we have chapters everywhere. So plug in locally. Just remember, it's not just about tech. Number one, it's about coming together as a community. Number one, it's about helping to grow ourselves, because as you ladies are experiencing, I heard you talking about AI. It doesn't matter what your company does. You will need technology and to understand overall how it operates. So even if just coming to hang out really helps you connect with a community of resources, we talked about resources that you can leverage and plug into. So we have monthly and quarterly events. Hit us on our socials. Bring your kids. Again, it's all about growth and community for them. I mean, at 8 years old, 10 years old, you may not even know what you want to do, but it's really about building community. And that's really what we're after. And then we do have a podcast, Women in Tech Trailblazers, Authenticity Unleashed. Go check that out. You can see it on our LinkedIn as well. It's really about tackling all the topics that we as women never talk about. Sometimes we go to a podcast and it's like, hear about how amazing and put together they are, and then you leave feeling like crap. And this is a place where like, you're not going to do that. You're going to find out that we all don't have our crap together, and it's okay. A safe place to do that. So check us out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Thank you all three of you guys for joining us today. I've had a blast. I hope our listeners have enjoyed it as well. If you did enjoy today's episode, be sure to check us out. We'll have all of our guest information linked in the video. And just remember, whether you're building a business, navigating challenges, or chasing your dreams, you're not alone in this. Keep going, stay bold, and we will see you next time on Business is Effing Hard. Bye, guys.